had always felt like she didn't fit in. She didn't have any close friends and often found herself alone. So when her parents told her they were moving to a new town, she didn't feel sad. She wasn't leaving anyone behind. To Katie, it was just a new place and a fresh start. At 8 years old, Katie found herself in a town that looked a lot like her old one. The neighborhood was surrounded by trees, and every day she could see other kids playing outside, riding bikes, and laughing together. But even though Katie liked to watch, she didn't feel brave enough to join them. When her mom noticed Katie staring out the window at the other kids, she encouraged her to go out and play. Katie tried, but as she got closer to the group, her heart raced. She just didn't feel like she belonged. So she turned around and decided to explore on her own instead. Katie walked further than she'd ever gone before, letting her curiosity lead her. After a while, she found herself in a beautiful, quiet spot. There was a clear lake surrounded by tall trees, with wildflowers blooming along the shore. It was peaceful, and she could hear the soft rustling of leaves and the gentle lapping of the water. She felt like she'd found a secret place, and right away, she decided that this lake would be her special spot. Every day after school, Katie would visit the lake before heading home. She loved the peace and quiet, and she'd sit by the water with her notebook, writing poems or drawing. Sometimes she'd bring snacks, just in case she stayed longer than planned. It was here, by the lake, that she felt happiest and least alone. One afternoon, while writing a poem about the lake, Katie heard a splash that startled her. She looked around, but no one else was there. She thought it might just be a fish, but as she stared into the water, she noticed something large, moving just below the surface. Slowly, she inched closer to the water's edge, holding her sandwich tightly. Unsure of what she was seeing, suddenly the creature rose from the water, splashing her as it lifted its head above the surface. Katie gasped, stumbling back and dropping her sandwich. She couldn't believe her eyes. Right in front of her was a dragon. It had shimmering blue-green scales and large, curious eyes that stared back at her. She was frightened at first, too shocked to move. But as she looked into the dragon's eyes, she felt a strange connection. The dragon looked as lonely as she often felt. Summoning her courage, Katie picked up her sandwich and extended it toward the dragon. The dragon watched her carefully, but when she dropped the sandwich into the water, it snatched it up quickly. Katie giggled as the dragon splashed her again, seemingly happy with its snack. She reached out her hand, and the dragon moved closer, letting her touch its nose. Its scales were rough but warm, and at that moment, she felt like she'd made a true friend. From that day on, Katie and the dragon met every afternoon by the lake. She'd bring 5 extra sandwiches, one for each day she could visit, and they'd sit together as she told the dragon about her day. She'd talk about her school, read her poems, and sometimes even sing or dance. The dragon listened quietly, nodding along, and Katie loved the way it made her feel seen and understood. One day, her teacher assigned the class a poem about their best friend to be read aloud. Katie knew exactly what to write. She described her dragon friend, the way its scales sparkled in the sun, the way it listened to her stories, and how it made her feel brave and special. When she read her poem in class, her classmates were surprised. They laughed, thinking it was funny that her best friend was a dragon. They didn't believe her when she said the dragon was real, so she promised to prove it. After school, her classmates followed her to the lake. Katie called out to the dragon, and after a moment, it rose from the water, just as she had described. Her classmates gasped in amazement. Some were scared at first, but Katie assured them the dragon was friendly. Soon, her classmates joined in the fun. They'd visit the lake every day with her, playing games, singing, and laughing. For the first time, Katie felt like she had friends, and she wasn't lonely anymore. One morning on the weekend, Katie went to the lake to visit her dragon friend. But when she arrived, she saw the dragon lying by the water's edge, looking sad. She knelt beside it, patting its nose gently. The dragon gave her a soft nuzzle, and Katie felt as if it was saying goodbye. Tears welled up in her eyes as she hugged her friend's nose. She didn't want the dragon to go, but somehow she knew it had to. The dragon backed away slowly, dipping back into the water. As Katie watched, it swam toward the horizon, then lifted out of the water, soaring up into the clouds. She stood there, waving until it disappeared, feeling a deep sadness. She cried that night, knowing she'd never see her best friend again. Without the dragon, most of her classmates stopped coming to the lake. Some stayed for a while, but soon, even they moved on. Katie was alone by the lake again, but she still went there every day, hoping her friend might come back. She'd bring extra sandwiches, just in case. One day, as she sat by the lake, she heard footsteps. It was one of her classmates, a boy named Dylan. When she asked if he was waiting for the dragon, he simply smiled and said, "I didn't come for the dragon. I came to ask if you wanted to be friends." Katie looked at him, surprised, then smiled and offered him a sandwich. They sat by the lake together, watching the water. Katie didn't feel lonely anymore. She'd made a friend, and even though the dragon was gone, she knew it had brought her something special, real friends she could count on. Thank you for joining Katie on her magical adventure with her dragon friend. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales of friendship and adventure. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. See you in the next one.